joining us. We are live in Zoom, so if you're following and watching on Facebook, there should be a link to join us directly in Zoom, where you can more directly ask questions and kind of interact with our guests today. My name is Ben Wright. I play the banjo in the Henhouse Prowlers, and during the major upheaval of the entire music industry, we decided to use this as an opportunity to get to know musicians from all over the world. We're lucky to have friends from our tours and stuff, and we think this is a great opportunity to kind of pick the brains of people who are who need some work right now. We are very proud to be paying all the musicians we've had as guests, and we're doing that because of our nonprofit Bluegrass Ambassadors. We're able to do that because of Bluegrass Ambassadors. So if you want to help us continue doing this, make sure you go to bluegrassambassadors.org, and if you're able, please consider donating, because it helps us not only push this program forward, but a whole bunch of programs that we're doing to kind of hopefully bring the world a little bit closer together through music. And that's something I know our guest today definitely jives with. This week's a tiny bit different because the Henhouse Prowlers are in the recording studio in Bloomington, Indiana, and I was going to take a couple weeks off so we could do this album, but then a mutual friend of our guest today hit me up just a few days ago and was like, you got to consider having this guy. And he was available, and I actually, right at that moment, went to your Facebook page and saw you were doing a live stream, and it just kind of melted my face.
Oh, dude. It just happened to be good timing, right? We just happened to be having a stream that day.
Yeah. So I was just like, I gotta do this. I'm really also excited that in the Zoom chat today is a good friend of ours, Vidget, who was an earlier guest on the show, who is an Indian gentleman that we actually met in Dubai, who is a huge fan of American music. He's a big Deadhead, and there's just some interesting connections going on. I know he'll have some interesting thoughts and questions today. So welcome to the Bluegrass Ambassadors Academy. Today's episode is more oriented towards adults / all music lovers. Tomorrow's will be a little bit more kid-friendly, so please let your friends that have kids at home know that tomorrow at the same time, 11 Central and 12 p.m. Eastern, we'll be doing a more kid-centered show. But I want to get started here, hey, we didn't discuss how to pronounce your last name, so let me try it, and then you can help me. Yeah. You can help me correct it. So I know your first name is Naryan.
Correct.
Last name, I'm not even looking at it because I've spelled it so many times posting across stuff. Padmanabha?
Oh, I would just slight. I would just say Padmanabha.
Padmanabha.
That's good. No, dude, you nailed it. You know, because we briefly talked about this. Can you imagine me growing up in school in the United States? You know what I'm saying? Anytime it was like attendance, a substitute teacher, or a brand new school year, teacher's going through the list of names, and then they just pause. And I'm like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here. Right? And then they're like, oh, okay. How do you say that again?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all, you know what? Actually, tell you the truth. And sometimes there's like some kids at a school I work with now. We have kids from like Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, South America, Japan, China, and the names are really different. And I'm like, I tell them, man, it might be a thing now where you might get a little embarrassed here and there, because like someone's butchering it. It might make you feel, these are high schoolers, and sometimes it just, they get all self-conscious. But I'm like, later on, you're going to be so happy that you have this really cool, unique name, and you totally stand out, and just stick with it for a while. I did the same thing, and it's going to be fine.
And you helped me yesterday or 2 days ago. I think I had originally pronounced your first name Naryan, and it's Naryan.
Naryan. Yeah,
Right.
And it's funny too, because like in India, or even my cousins, like they'll be like, "You're saying your name wrong." Like they tell me, "No, that's not how you say it. Your name is." This is what they say. They'll be like, "No." I'll be like, "Oh, it's nice to see you." And they're like, "Well, we hear how you say your name. It's Narayan, not Narayan." I'm like, dude, it's like the same thing, man.
That's
but they get mad at me. They get mad.
So tell me about that instrument you're holding.
Sure. So what I have here is a sitar, and my sitar. This is actually I have a couple. Actually, you can see them over there. But it's funny because like over the years I've acquired a couple sitars and been playing for like maybe 20 years now on sitar, and which I'm still like totally a student, in the general scheme of things. But the one I have right here is actually was brought over by my aunt like 35 years ago or something like that. And it sat at my parents' house for a long time because nobody knew how to play it because that's pre-internet, so you couldn't figure out how to tune it. And it was really difficult to like get through how do you get extra strings? There's all and in the Indian community, Buffalo is like not that bad. It's pretty decent size, but you can't get any of these materials. So it was really hard to find stuff. So it ended up being that the sitar that I'm playing today, which is actually my favorite one, is I don't want to say it's concert quality, but it's like definitely a lower quality, but I like it. It's like this one is a touch smaller than normal. When I mean smaller, I'm talking like an inch.
Right.
It's a tiny bit smaller. But it's like it would be the version of like a sports car compared to like, a big boat, whatever. And so I actually prefer this one. And so what's going on with it is that it's an acoustic sitar, and I have it hooked up electrically with some what are called contact piezo mics. I'll just zoom in a little bit.
I've seen those.
So there's little black dots that you see
Right.
on either side. Yep. And I just plug it in with a 1/4-inch cable. And, you got to fiddle around with like where it should go for a little bit once you get going. But some people might notice already that, and this is where it gets kind of strange for our little interview today, is that the big deal with the sitar is that there's an upper bridge and then there's a lower bridge. But since I play, well, it's gone.
Okay.
This is what the thing is. Because I'm such a busy player, like I'm playing so much, just like, like a banjo has like a lot of, like, a lot going on, right?
Yeah.
And if I have so what happens is that there's an upper bridge, and then there's this lower bridge, and then when you hit a note on the upper bridge, it would resonate strings below it, okay? And what happens is that you have all this natural resonating going on, but it's like, and it actually, it sounds like reverb and all that stuff, but it's just too much howling going on in the instrument. So when I plug it in and play electrically, it's just too much going on. And so basically, the construction of it, the bridges used to be made out of bone, but man, if you've ever smelled bone being shaved,
Yeah, it's gross.
yeah, so gross, right? Aren't there some bones on banjos and
The nut at the top before the strings go wrap around the post at the top, the headstock is often bone. And I used to work at a guitar store, and I remember them shaving bones or sanding bones down, and it just smells like somebody's hair caught on fire.
Oh, totally. And like I feel like it like gets up your nose and like you smell it for days. It's
Yeah.
horrible, right? So like I got ebony wood now, so it's it's wood, and the wood sounds really good, but there's all sorts of things that people use. But so basically what's going on is that it's a gourd back here. And so the way they get one of the ways to get a uniform shape is that they'll grow the gourd in a like a clay mold. And then when the gourd matures, they crack it, and then you get like this nice uniform shape, and then you have like this wooden neck. And so this is all hollowed out, and you can even hear, well, you hear that? Mm-hmm. There's like little nuts and stuff in there. Like, it's actually a very light instrument. And so you got the upper bridge, and then you have all of our frets right here, which are movable, because like there is some movement in the instrument where you're going to want to have to do some really fine-tune adjustments because they're just tied on. See, those are just little knots, and they're actually just tied onto the instrument.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, and it's actually really hard to tie them. It's like a whole science. It's like you got to be like this knot loop master. Like you can see the knots there.
Yeah.
It's a little knot, and basically what you would see is that you would normally see a bunch of strings below here, all connected to these tuning pegs. So what you're looking at is that the small tuning pegs are for that lower bridge I was talking about that resonates. The big tuning pegs are part of the main playing strings, which is like this upper main bridge that I'm playing that you hear. But the really cool thing, and this is where this signature sound comes from. So you hear like the right? That is caused because as opposed to like a guitar neck or even banjo or most stringed instruments, the neck is not nearly as wide as this. And so what's happening, and this is where like the science comes in, this thing is ever so slightly shaved forward. Okay, so when it's shaved forward, what happens is this is actually every guitar technician's nightmare it's actually creating a buzz. So what's happening? You know what I mean? Right? Like a tech would be like, dude, this sounds terrible. So the string's actually just vibrating against itself. I can't really get to that close, but you can kind of, there's a slight curve forward.
Okay.
But there is. And so you'll see some people have 7 strings up here and some people will have 6 strings. There's basically 2 main schools of sitars. There's a Ravi Shankar style or there's Valayat Khan style. So similar to what I was saying earlier, Ravi Shankar style is more like resonating, big, huge melodies, lots of ringing outs of tones. Or Valayat Khan style, Ravi Shankar has 7 strings, Valayat Khan has 6 strings. So they actually take away a string in Valayat Khan's case because there's so much going on. It actually cuts down on all the extra resonating. So he's like a busier player. And that's what I have. So sometimes you'll see 7 pegs, but there's nothing in it. I ended up just taking mine away because when I was a kid, I broke it because I didn't know what I was doing. I yanked on it one day and it just broke it, but whatever. It doesn't matter. You don't need it anyway.
Huh. So can you, first, how many strings are on that sitar?
Sure. So this one, currently, there are 6 main playing strings, and then there would be 11 sympathetic strings. But just in this case, I have them taken out because I play electrically almost exclusively now. I barely play acoustically anymore. So
how many strings then are on that one right there?
Only 6 at the moment.
Okay.
But there would be 17.
And you wouldn't fret those extra strings, the drone strings.
Correct. They would literally just sit there and they sit on the bottom of the body itself. Actually, I mean, if you want to see the other one, you want to see what it looks like? I mean,
maybe I want to see what's on your finger.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
On my finger is something called a mizrab. Here, I'll take it off real quick.
Wow.
So mizrab is it's our pick, and on this pick, it just fits over the finger, like that. And then the cool thing is, so I can pluck the string back and forth. Huh. So that's how I get exactly, boom boom. Yep. So there's an up and down stroke just back.
So you strike it up too, so it's back and forth kind of.
And then there'll be 2 notes. So we call one is the da note, and then the one is ra. So and they actually sound a little different. So here's da, here's ra.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? It's one's a touch warmer and one has a touch tack. I mean, it's and these. Go ahead.
No, well, I'm just gonna say when you spend that much time with an instrument, you start to hear those slight little differences with technique. It's really cool.
Totally, yeah. And the mizrabs are. It's funny because they're all unique. If you were to go to get a guitar pick, you like a something medium, whatever hardness. This is it's like the Wild West. They all come totally differently. And what you have to do is you have to keep pressing it to your finger. So I have a couple extra, but none of them fit me the same way. So I have my tight ones, I have my loose fitting ones, and I'm honestly, I wear different ones depending to how large my finger is that day. You know what I mean? Some days your fingers are fatter, right? So my fingers are fatter, I wear the bigger one. My fingers are smaller, I wear the thinner one. It just depends on the day.
Yeah, my banjo picks are flexible, and there are definitely days where I have to open them up more, probably because I haven't been drinking very much water or whatever the reason is. Our fingers are not the same size every day. You don't realize that until you wear something on them every day.
Right. And just those small little nuances, all those little things, even just holding the instrument, there's days where my arm is it's got to be connected to my body. So normally, okay, dude, I used to sit on my rig. I now sit on this. It's a little platform, or it's actually a scaffolding for it's like a ladder for scaffolding, and folds up. It's you get it at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. And but I used to sit on the floor of all these nasty bars and clubs and stuff, and because the sitar normally would sit. I'm not gonna do it right now, but normally would sit under my foot. If you can see my foot right there. Mm-hmm. On my foot, and so you gotta you really get this close connection to the instrument. You feel it through your foot. It's off the ground, and then the other part tucks into your hip, and then your arm rests on the top. So like if your skin's a little dry, or if it's like too much like moisture in it, you're slipping. But like honestly, I need to hit the instrument in my arms for like a minute. I literally needs to warm up to the body temperature of me. And if it's not, like it'll be kind of like wiggly around a little bit. So that's why just here, why I'm kind of just holding it. I mean, it's hot here today, but it can get weird, you know. So, but you really notice those like minor differences because like if I'm going to be doing that quick note stuff, if my arm's off by, you know, like a millimeter or something, you know, it's a big deal. But when you've played it a million times, you know how to adjust quickly. But if you're newer, you'd be like, no, this isn't the same. You know, you'd be freaking out, right?
Well, I want to hear you play some. I want to give a shout out. There's definitely let us know where you're tuning in from. We've got Karen is here from Munich.
Nice.
And I see a bunch of our friend Joe is here from Uganda.
Nice.
Justin's here from Denver. We know Justin. So yes, and Karen just wanted to say that you have a beautiful room, and I 100% agree.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This has been a lot of years in the making to like put it together like this. I mean, but I appreciate it. Thank you. I mean, doesn't your environment? It's huge, man. Like, you know, it is. It's hard to tune that out, but it's, you know, the environment's important.
Yeah, for sure. So, what are you going to play for us?
Well, I could do either two routes. Maybe I'll take your suggestion. Like, I could do something kind of traditional, or I can do something that's like in the style of like what I've been doing for the last couple of years. You know.
I think it'd be cool to start with tradition, and maybe give a little bit of history behind the piece that you're playing.
So, this instrument you hear right now, that light droning in the background, is called a tambora, and so this instrument is in the key of C. So this drones in the same notes that I will be playing. So if we hear it, and you got to keep it kind of low, but I will turn it up for a sec. That's it. And if you hear my instrument, whoa, I'm out of tune already. Yeah, it's warmed up to my body and changed.
This is the real life of playing instruments.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't have a guy to set it up for, like in the background. Be like, oh, here you go. One second.
It's all right.
So the drum's gonna be in the same key. And so what I'll do is I'll play this tune called it's called Raghupati Ragala Rajaram.
Okay.
I love saying that name because it just sounds so like biggest mouthful ever. And so Raghupati Ragala Rajaram. I'm choosing this because as being part of like, you know, a roots thing, you know, even like bluegrass music, like, you know, like a core, you know, like, I don't know how to say, like a trademark of like that area and like a way people feel and like live in an area, like this thing spawned from that, you know, like, so this would be like a folk tune in India. And what it was, it's about in Hinduism, there's a god called Rama. Actually, not a god. I don't know if everybody knows this, but quick Hindu lessons. Actually, I know a lot of people think that Hinduism is polytheistic, but it's actually monotheistic. I know it looks like there's many gods, but those are all manifestations of one god. They actually consider themselves monotheistic, and it's a long conversation, but this one's about Rama, who's like known for like hard work and like perseverance. So this song is like often sung for like times of you know, like when you need like a little bit of uplifting and like hard work, okay? So I'll start off with a slow tempo. like normally folk music, what they'll do is the slow emotional part at first, and then they want to get everybody involved because everybody wants to sing too. So eventually they would go like this. And then you can go next one. Personally, I think the slow and the medium is the best. But that's a personal preference for me. And that's Raghupati Raga Rajaram.
Dude, that's so beautiful. We have some. I have a comment here from Vijit in Dubai saying, given everything that's happening in the world today, I think it's really cool that you started with Raghupati, which happened to be Mahatma Gandhi's favorite devotional song.
That is funny that you say that. Not funny. I'm sorry. It's very coincidental that you mentioned that Gandhi, because I think that would be a good segue to jail.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have some experience. I still want. I'm not surprised that there's a million things I want to ask you, but I think you're right. We were talking before we went live about some unique gig experiences you've had. Please share the connection to Gandhi.
Right.
Cool.
So, so basically, like to back up that story, why I chose that song is, and the connection right now is that about 7 years ago, I hooked up with Arun Gandhi, who is Gandhi's grandson, and the Gandhi Institute of Nonviolence, the world headquarters, is in Rochester, New York, which is about an hour away from my house. And about 7 years ago, I met Arun Gandhi at an event, and he invited me to come to play at a prison as part of a program. And the deal is, it was called the Season of Nonviolence. It's from when MLK was assassinated to when Gandhi was assassinated. What the deal is that inmates take a vow to like not do any violent acts towards each other. So what we do is we would do this like world cultural immersion thing. So Gandhi would do a lecture about how, growing up with his grandfather, what it was like, the lessons he had learned. And then he had me basically tag along and do this like cultural thing. Like, this is where our culture comes from, and like where Gandhi got this whole non-violence thing for. It's called ahisma in Hinduism. It means like just non-violent actions. And so the cool part is that I would play a musical piece for the inmates, and then he would give a lecture, and then I'd play another musical piece. And it was cool because I was able to, and just like Ben and the Hen House guys, they were able to, in Belgium, you guys had a similar experience, but we were able to play with inmates. And it was really cool because you got to chat with them. And my biggest takeaway was that, a lot of shows out there portray inmates as like these horrible monsters. And when I went there, for the years, so I've been going there for multiple years, I've met these guys who are, they made big mistakes, and they are as human as you and I, and they have a heart, they have a family. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying everybody out there is like has redeemed themselves and they're good to go, but like these guys, man, they made a mistake, and it's tough to see them their whole entire life. I think of when they say they went in, they say like, oh, I got in at like 20 years old and now I'm 40. I'm like, I'm thinking about what I've done between the years of 20 years old and 40, which I'm 42, by the way. And just thinking like, that's like been a lot has happened. I mean, everybody's had a lot happen, but it's like, these dudes are missing all that, and it's just like, it's just an incredible, I don't know. It's just a crazy experience, but it was cool to just be there and just like my goal is to be like to change the mindset of like how people think of prisoners being like they're all these bad dudes always. It's not the case, man. A lot of guys are really good guys. They goofed up, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into the politics of it, but I, you know, I think a lot of religions actually at their core talk about how addressing people in prison is one of the most powerful things you can do. And I know that Jesus Christ had the works of mercy, and one of the works of mercy was visiting people in prison because they're alone. And I just think it is an interesting thing that you don't think about very much, but
Right.
but it's really valuable. And we both have had experience playing in jails, and I walk out of those experiences with a different feeling than I do from any gig.
Totally.
And it's powerful and a beautiful experience, and you
Yeah.
get to know the people. So I appreciate you sharing
Yeah.
that.
And just like one last thing is, it's so simple, but when you like after that gig, and you guys have probably experienced the same thing. Like, okay, so you go to the jail, you play, whatever. But like, dude, you walk out of that day and you go somewhere else, and it's just like one not I'm saying it's a random night for us who are on the outside of a jail, but like those guys don't get to go home. And I'm just thinking like when I went home my first day from playing at a prison, being like just thinking about literally like exiting the grounds, looking back and being like, none of these guys are going home tonight. And it's like they're in a big dormitory. I can't imagine how scary it would be, or just unsteady or whatever, and just like I'm going home, and like it's a random night for me, but like, wow, I better make them count, because
Yeah.
they might not be there.
Yeah.
I'm not planning on committing any crimes. I'm just saying,
So our friend Joe in Kampala was asking, are those tuning pegs? So can you refresh
Sure.
and remind us those extra pegs that are at the bottom? Normally those have strings on them, right?
Totally. So the larger tuning pegs that you'll see, so there's two here that you see, and then you can't see them on the shadow, but there's two there, okay? And then there's 2, 4, and then 6, okay? Those big tuning pegs correlate to an upper bridge on the sitar. Those are to this bridge right here. And then the other tuning pegs, these little guys down here, some sitars have 11, some have 13. Those get actually, they're incredibly, the ingenuity of this instrument, like being, just so old, they actually go through the neck. The neck is hollow. And so if I pull out a tuning peg, the tuning, the string has to be strung through this hole, okay? And then there's a corresponding hole. Well, you can't see it there. But that's like there's a hole there. Let me see. You can see these holes. See those little white dots in the middle of the fretboard? They get strung through there, and then they go underneath this big main bridge, and then those just they are tuned stationary to like a chromatic scale, whatever you want them to be, and whenever you hit a note up top, it'll resonate a note below it. But the reason why I don't have them is because of playing electric is just too much.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to learn how to play the sitar, what's the, besides taking lessons from you, and by the way, I do want to give a shout out multiple times to your website, which is naryanp, right?
Yes.
.com?
Correct. NaryanP.com.
No, NARYANP.com. And if you wanted, this guy has a ton of music on his website. You can see him playing with all sorts of different styles of music. I can't recommend go there now. And also, you're a teacher. So
Correct.
if you, so what's the process if someone fell in love with that instrument and wanted to learn it? How do they start?
Quit. Right away. First thing you do, quit. It's actually, a good friend of mine, Justin, who's on here right now. He just recently got a sitar, and he has musical experience in his past too, and he's a player. But just like any instrument, there's like a slight learning curve at the beginning to find out what are like the core principles that you need to learn, and then after that, you can develop your own style. But so what I would say is that if you are interested, I have a really good friend who is a world instrument dealer. And he encourages, like, the whole idea is like to get instruments out there. And honestly, I would just say contact me. I can help you get your sitar going. I can advise you like what the things that you'll need to get you going, and help you with your tuning, and hook you up with a decent instrument. Because as anybody who plays, or any item out there that that your hobby is or whatever, when you start off with like quality, when you started off, you probably didn't have like the highest end thing. But once you get better and you get more of a refined item, whatever that may be, even if it's a mixer bowl for your cooking or whatever it may be, you find that it performs better, right? So I can start you off with with something that's a decent price, to get you up and running, that'll carry you over for a long time. Like it ends up being like my favorite instrument, the one I'm playing right now, isn't a high end instrument. It's actually pretty middle of the road. Sometimes you may even call it tourist quality, but it's I love it. And there's a way to make it so it's like it's yours. And but yeah, you can contact me, no problem. Can walk you through steps, and I can have just the instrument just shipped right to your house, straight from him. And we can chat. There's so many ways, so many platforms these days. I'm happy to take phone calls, or if even if you're a texting person, emails, Messenger, whatever, all that stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, no.
So can you give me personally kind of an overview of the technique that you're using to play that?
Sure. It's so a lot of the thing about a classical Indian instrument is that it's supposed to mimic the human voice. So there's supposed to be less. Well, there can be staccato. So staccato, is going one note to the next. So the deal is that you want to try to mimic the human voice. You want to go seamlessly from one note to the next. So like, a piano can't go right. It's got to go ba 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 ba, right. So that's what we would do. So I'm gonna play I'll play like these 3 notes in a row, like. But you would also be able to have the ability to go like this. So you got to be able to know how to bend all these notes. So, and the thing is, it's all about like tension and drama, So like you want to create some tension. So like instead of just going da da da, you can go. It's way more emotional, and it's only like a small, subtle thing. But that's part of it is. And so like a singer would do that with their voice. They'd be like, ba ba, like no problem. But the instrument's got to be able to do it. So, but some guys can stretch up to like 7 notes, which is a big stretch. That's why on a sitar, I'll show you a little bit of anatomy again. So you'll see. If you see here, this main playing string that I'm wiggling right now. Can you see that? Okay, that wiggly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You notice how it's in the middle of the fretboard. That's because this thing needs to be able to be stretched. Let me just show you over here. Like this can be stretched all the way out there. That's a big stretch. So that's why there's no strings over there, because like you stretch these things like crazy. So, and that's only this stretch like here. That's only really like a couple. That's like 3 or 4 notes. So when you get those people who are stretching like 7, I mean, it's like they're on the edge. They go, but I sometimes, that's just a style of playing that's just different. But, and then some of the other things, your arms resting on the gourd itself, and then you have to plant your thumb. I think. Well, do you do that with the banjo?
I plant my pinky and my ring finger. Some people just plant their pinky, but
Okay.
it locks me to the instrument. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you're locking on the like under, right?
Yeah. Right.
And then, So I just have to lock above. So what I'll do is I'll just plant my thumb here, and that gives me my anchor. And so from there, what I'll do is like I can hit my notes, and then remember my mizrab, my pick goes back and forth, so I can go. So I'll play like all upward strokes, which is the da. So it's, or I can go. So if I want to play fast, I can go. So the back and forth really helps with that thing. If you had it, so it's like similar to a guitar pick going back and forth, similar to but the banjo, I don't know, like that's a little bit different style though. But.
It's different, but I actually have another slightly connected question. Like banjo players are forever seeking out a way to electrically amplify their instrument that is actually true to the sound of the instrument.
Sure.
How long did it take you to figure out the best setup to plug your sitar in?
Oh man, I actually had a unique experience growing up in Buffalo. It's because I never had any formal lessons. So growing up in Buffalo, I was there's an organization that brings classical Indian music to town, and they would bring like the top names. So like if you're looking for like the top names in classical Indian music, it's like Shiv Kumar Sharma, Valia Khan, Shahid Parvez, Hari Prasad, Sultan Khan, and Zakir Hussain. I'm sure you've heard some of these names. These are the top people. And when they come to Buffalo, the Indian community is small. So like in India, they'll play a show for like thousands of people. When they come to Buffalo, it's a show for like 150 people. So it's like very intimate. And I was the sound engineer for I don't know. I must have done 100 shows with these guys. The cool thing is, so when these people bring the Indian musicians to town, it's a small little organization and they stay with the host family. But the tradition is after the show, we all go back to their house and we eat dinner and we just hang out all night. And that's when all the musicians would give me like tips. And they'd be like, okay, make sure you do this, make sure you do that, and I'd just say, oh, what was this, something? And I'd be the sound engineer, so I'd be with them for a few hours before the show, so I could ask them all sorts of stuff. And then we would inevitably have this camaraderie because they would come into town, they would see me all like morning, we would do the show, and then they would see me afterwards. So I was like one of the people who was with them like almost the whole entire time, right? So like, that was like a recognizable face for them. So when they would come back to town, it was like they were so happy to like see each other and just share stories. And honestly, these guys, they would be and women, like we would be up 3 or 4 in the morning just listening to music, talking about like things back in the day. It was so awesome. And now I'm forgetting what the question was, but
how you kind of answered it, how you got you figured out how to amplify your instrument authentically.
Right. Yes, and so a lot of the guys, they were really hardcore about using a microphone, and they still are. So like, those really nice and high-end mics. But what I found out is that contact mic on there is so sensitive. I mean, you can even everything. Actually, it counts against me sometimes because like sometimes I'll have a delay pedal on, and if I move, like if I might delay them on a little more, it's like. So here's everything. Like if I go like this.
Right.
That's the sound of my arm peeling off my sitar. So sometimes I gotta kill that and be like, it's like it's weird. Or like sometimes like how it's a gourd, and so sometimes like the little nuts in there or whatever are rattling around, and they'll be rattling around in the delay going like doing all this weird stuff. So I embrace it and just be part of the song.
That's cool. Can you tell us a little bit about your cultural heritage?
Sure. So when I was born, my mom. She's Irish, and her family's from Ireland, and my father's from India. So I'm actually half Indian and half Irish. And so, like, in my house, we had my mom's Catholic and my dad's Hindu. So, like, on Sundays, it wouldn't be weird to go to the, Roman Catholic church in the morning, and then we go to the temple later. But the one cool thing that I want to tell you is that, the Catholic church did their thing, whatever. But at the Hindu temple, they had a picture of Jesus there. And as a kid, that was like really confusing because I'm like, wait, why is Jesus' picture at the Hindu temple, and why aren't some of the deities over at the church or whatever? And it turns out like the Hindu people were like, we can learn from Jesus. I mean, he's a smart spiritual leader, and he's spread a positive message, and they would recognize him, as like not traditionally, but like in some areas, there's not like there's a straight shot to Jesus as part of their rituals or anything, but I always thought that really captivated me, being like just how they were so accepting of a different path, but we all have like a same kind of similar goal. So I was like, that was really just attractive as a kid, and
That's
just
cool.
Cultures as got older, being like, oh my God, you guys, if you don't realize experiencing other cultures is amazing because like there's so many similarities that you would see that you might not have known,
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a song that we're actually recording here in the studio that talks about how Jesus was actually a Muslim prophet
nice.
as well. And he's like he's one of the major prophets in Islam, but people don't really think about that too much. So,
and speaking of that, like, so, because I'm a teacher, we talk about how like Old Testament, man, when they're talking about God, when in Islam and in Christianity they're talking about God, they're talking about the same God. Same person. And talk about Abraham. It's the same Abraham, man. And like people think it's like so different, man. Old Testament, same book, man. Like it's like in Judaism too. Like there's so many similarities. They share things. Not that there's similarities. Like that's the same book. That's the same God. Like we're talking about the same things, which is just really cool. That I don't know. Gets
Yeah.
overlooked.
Yeah, I suspect you and I could talk about that forever.
Right.
But so I've got a bunch of questions that all kind of fit together. One of the things that I think is fascinating about you is that you don't lock yourself into playing one style of music, and you have played with symphonies, you play with jam bands, you play with another previous guest on this show, Fareed Haq. And so I guess I'll ask these questions and then you kind of take it where you want to go with it. So, John asked, could you take a moment to explain the role of improvisation in traditional Indian music and how that's similar or different from improvisation in Western music? And the other question from our friend Vijit is, I see lots of guitar-shaped sitars in the background. So what genre of music do you play on those guitars? So that's a whole lot of stuff. Run with it.
Well, I think I can do a brief version because it's obviously an extended version. So the first one about the improvisation of Indian music. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the deal is it's like this, and it makes a lot of sense. There are times, say, the classical Indian world, there are 12 main scales. Okay, and it's the same as Western scales. Like, so you know how we have in Western scales do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So in India, or in classical music, it's sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. Same things though. They all stand for the same things. So there's all those, and just like Western scales, they're all the same versions. Like there's a flat fifth, a flat sixth, a flat, all that stuff. So they all equal each other. But for the classical part, what they do is they broke down the day into different parts. So each tune basically is called a raga, and a raga is basically like a theme where there's a set like motif that's played. And then the deal is that you improvise off of that. But the cool thing is that there's rules. So it's funny because it's like a juxtaposition. You're free to improvise however you want, but there's rules in those things. So for example, in some scales, there's a certain ascending pattern where like you'll omit a note or two, but when you go descend on that scale, you can play them again. So it just creates like a drama and a mood and creates some tension. And so you're free to improvise. So for example, like if you're playing like I'll just play like a scale. So like this is like a regular just major scale. So okay, whoops. And so say that's up. Now let's say this one raga we're gonna play. Up is you can play this. So I miss some, but then on the way down you go. Now, when you play it when you get it all together, you'll just feel how that you didn't hear that note, but when that's introduced later, you're like, oh. So instead of just like giving it all, so basically it's like this: you're not giving it all out right away. You're holding some things back. So on the ascending scale, there could be it could be all the notes, could be like missing a couple notes or whatever, and then the way down, same thing. So so like you can imagine, there's thousands of these. So there's every combination possible. Like there's a raga Bill Wall. Bill Wall is everything up, and then the way back down, you omit like I think it's so like up is like this, and then down is it's sorry. It's different. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's cool. So like when you're improvising though, and you don't hit that note every time on the way back down, it's cool. It creates like a totally different mood, and so there's that, and then they break it down by day. So there's ragas that are played early morning, mid-morning, late morning, early afternoon, mid-afternoon, late afternoon, early evening, mid-evening, late evening, early night, midnight, late night. And there's like this whole like super late night thing. Like, so, and when you hear these ragas at those times of day, you're like, that is exactly what should be played at that time of day. You'll hear it and you'll be like, that makes a lot of sense. Like that mood that you hear is totally early morning, and you'll hear it. And it's like, So, and then it's kind of cool. So when you see a classical concert, sometimes what they'll do is the musicians will make you travel to like a different time. They'll play an early morning thing at night, so like you feel like it's morning time, and it totally works. Like, have you ever felt like a song where you're just like, oh, this feels like uplifting and happy or whatever? Like or it's like this is dark and mysterious. This is more nighttime or whatever. That's what those are, and they have a whole system that works out like that. So it makes a lot of sense, you know. So there's that. I hope that answers it.
Wow, that blows my mind. Like, are there, if you're playing a late morning raga, are there specific notes that you avoid or stay closer to? Or?
Really, you know what? I don't think, because there's so many possibilities out there. I don't know offhand if it's like every late morning raga, every descending scale always misses that one note. I don't know that. That's a good question. I'm not sure about that. So, but that's a good question though.
Some John, the guy who asked that question, said, and people think that playing bebop is a challenge.
Totally. And it's so funny because like you're free to improvise, but you got to pay attention to these rules. And like, you know, I'll do all this stuff and like the classical crowd, like I've played for them before, they hate what I do. Like the purist people, they're like, what are you doing? Oh my God. You know, like they cringe, but I'm like, you know, this is where I just feel like going here right now. You know, I'm you know, sometimes I'll do the restricted things, and you know, for the tension and to make it sound like, you know, create this landscape or whatever, or soundscape. Sometimes I don't want to stick to it. You know, sometimes I just want to do whatever. You know.
Yeah, well, every single genre of music has those people.
Totally.
And it's like we have a name for them in bluegrass. We call them trad chads. And they're people that walk around and shake their finger at you for not playing traditional bluegrass.
Totally,
So
yeah.
that's a universality.
Sure.
We have a request here for you to play something that's not traditional.
Okay. You know what I'll do is like, cause yeah, I would love to show you a couple of examples. So maybe I'll just kind of whip through them kind of quickly. But normally, I mean, I could play this next tune for an hour easily, no problem. Like, I'm serious. I play, and here's back to the about the ragas. Here's something that's kind of cool. This is a cool thing. So when you play a raga, you don't just jump into that theme that I was talking about. You do something called an alap. So just like classical music, Western music, there's different movements. You know, like adagio or whatever those things are. You know what I'm saying? In classical music, it's the same thing. So there's the first part's called an alap. The alap is a free time exploration of the notes that you will be playing. So it's awesome. So like, for example, I'll just do a quick alap. So like, let's see. So I would slowly introduce one note at a time. See, we don't have time really to do this because like it would take forever. But what I would do is I'm gonna play this scale, just a minor scale, right? So that's what I'm gonna play. So the deal is that you introduce one note at a time, and you kind of milk it as much as you want before you introduce the next note. So for example, I'll go like. Now I'll have two notes. Then I'll go. And now I have four notes. Fifth note. Now I have five notes to play with. And then you know, five notes, just like endless possibilities. And then then I can go to the sixth note and then do all six. And then when you've done all that, sometimes an alap takes like 30 minutes to get through. Just because you're really feeling it, like you're really setting it up, you know. So there's that example. So I'll play. This is this first tune I'll play is a little bit more electronic-y. This is kind of a tune I would probably play like for like a yoga class maybe, or just like a chill sesh somewhere where like people are just like, you know, mellowing out, and you're I feel like being mellow. So I'm just gonna kind of jump into it, but normally I would like set it up, introduce different instruments at a time. And just like my rig, just so if you're wondering, you know, so I have my sitar goes into a Boss ME guitar pedal. This is what I'm playing over here. And then I have like a little preamp thing here by Red Eye. It's called like the red eye preamp. It's really nice if you have an acoustic instrument. And then I play with an iPad, and I made all these tracks in the studio, and then I load them in my iPad on this thing called Launchpad by Novation, and so I can trigger them on and off as needed. So it gives me like this improv aspect. Now this is like when I'm playing by myself, so I feel like I'm jamming, but I'll just jump right into it. If you have speakers, it'd be best just because your bass is so low. Now I'll go to the third movement. Pretty straightforward, like, blend of like east-west. I start to get weird. So, I would just jam out like on that. Stuff like that. So that'd be like an electronic kind of version of something. And then we have time. I can do like a more organic version.
Mm-hmm. Please.
This tune. Let's see here. This tune's called Flamingo Swagger. I was in a weird place when I wrote this. So like, I can do just drums and tabla. You can't hear the tabla. And I can just go. Here's the tune. Play around like this all day, just like pull one instrument out, pull it back in, back out. Right here's just the drums, a little guitar, and I can do this. that'd be like a more of like an organic example, you know.
Dude, that was so cool. You play your rig. I mean, it's clear that you're extremely comfortable with all your equipment there,
Yeah.
and that's because I mean you play with a lot of bands as a guest, but you also do a lot of solo stuff, right?
Yeah, these days it's like it's pretty much just been me for the last like while, and like you know like people like Justin inviting me out to like you know these great opportunities and stuff, and but yeah, so you know it's just the thing is like honestly to tell you the truth, as I'm getting older, you know some people's commitments have changed. It's just like they just can't do it anymore, and like so I'm still trying to plug away. You know, I mean, I will like next month I'll be 43, and like you know it's just cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just thinking like some of my gigs, I'm like, am I
Me
too old
too,
for this
dude.
gig?
43.
Same age? Are you the same?
43, yeah.
Hey, all right, man.
Yeah.
So it's like, I honestly tell you the truth, it brings me joy, and you know, if it brings other people joy too, like I just want to keep doing it. And it's funny though, because like the genre thing, I just I can't commit to like one genre. I just like finally at a point right now where I'm just like, I'm playing what I would want someone to play. You know what I mean? Like I haven't heard this sound, and I'm looking for that. So then I just like started doing it. Like I really like down tempo music. So I like this like electronic kind of mix, like this real like chill ambient thing. And I think Sitar is just so complementary to it. So that's kind of where I'm at. You know?
Yeah. I'm going to remind folks again, as we're getting very close to the end of the show, that you can reach Naryan Padmanabha,
Woo!
right?
Yeah, dude.
By his website, narynp.com.
Yes.
naryanp.com. And he's on social media and totally worth looking up because you've been doing some really cool live streams. I tuned into one the other day where you were improvising along with some Grateful Dead music.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so that's why I heard somebody earlier was talking about like Grateful Dead or I get right? Somebody was asking about Grateful Dead. And that's one of those things where like I was like, you know, I would love to do this, and you know, how awesome would it be to jam with these things? But here's the thing: this thing's in a one key, so it was really difficult to like transpose things, and you know, everything would have to be totally rewritten. But in the last couple months, I've figured out a different way to automatically transpose some things. So it's like, so for example,
On the fly?
not on the fly though. I got
Okay.
I got a pre-plan.
Whew.
So I can change its key. So like for example, this song. This is Grateful Dead. Actually, no, hang on, I'll play a different one. But it's like it's written in a different key, but I was able to change it to fit for my sitar, which is like huge.
Right.
Where is it? Oh, here we go. So like here's this is in a different key. This is not in C, but I made it into C, so I can crank this up. Ready? Ready? This is like some things I'd be doing on my live stream. You know what I mean? Maybe not the best example to do that one in, but just like, you know, fun things like that. Just like, you know, but yeah, to play along with these covers has been it's like a whole new treasure trove of stuff for me. You know, as a person who's improvising a lot too, you know, it's like mentally draining at the end of a gig when you're just like, you know, because you want to be interesting, you don't want to overplay, and like you're playing all this stuff, and then like by the end of the day, I'm like fried. So it's kind of nice with these covers. It's like, you know, we all kind of know how it goes, and like, you know, and so I'm just kind of dancing around some of the melodies and themes, and it makes it fun, you know. So
Yeah.
There's different twists, and it's like it's just to show to people too that the sitar is not as crazy and foreign as you think it is. It can jam with whatever. It's like it's not that big of a deal, you know.
Yeah, I'm really glad you got to that, and I think it's a really wonderful way to kind of bookend everything. Our friend Vidget, who's tuning in, he said he loved hearing you do that.
Nice.
He said you've got to get in there with Dead and Company when they tour next. So,
Hey, that dude. Whew, that'd be, I think I'd be so nervous. I don't even think I can even. I don't think I'd sleep for a week, like just knowing. There's no way. It's no way.
that's awesome.
Crazy.
Well, we're gonna wrap things up. I want to. Tomorrow we're gonna do a whole episode for kids, and I'm really excited about it because you're a school teacher.
That's right.
You're not just a music teacher. You're also a school teacher, and you know, when you work with kids every day, you build skill sets in that, just like you do in practicing an instrument. And I think tomorrow's episode is going to be really, really great for kids. So if you're tuning in today and you know kids are at home, want some to help the kids get some exposure to different kinds of music, tomorrow's episode at the same time, 11 Central, 12 Eastern. Make sure you tune in. John is dropping the link to it to sign up on Zoom right now. And I'm going to remind you one last time that we're all doing this through our nonprofit, Bluegrass Ambassadors. If you're able to donate to Bluegrass Ambassadors, it's really easy to do that through our website, bluegrassambassadors.org. It'll help us continue doing this programming and other stuff that we're working on. After tomorrow's episode, we're for kids. We're going to take at least a week off because we're in the recording studio. But I can't encourage you enough to continue seeking out Naryan Padmanabha.
You got it.
Yeah,
Yes,
nice.
yes.
It's naryanp.com. Go check his stuff out. Find him on Facebook. Purchase some of his music because we're all in a rough spot right now. And it's cool. I've got somebody from Kenya here is loving your equipment.
Oh.
And I know that our friend Joe in Uganda also had some of his friends on here, and they were kind of drooling over everything you were doing. So.
That's awesome. Well, you know, and it's funny. Yeah, that's awesome, guys. And you know, I tune in from around the world. That's so awesome. Peace to you guys. And it's just so cool that we have this universal language between all of us, and just we all know how true it is, and there's no way we're stopping that stuff. That's so awesome, man.
Right on,
thanks,
dude.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. You made this. You just really hit me in that spot. Can you leave us with one last quick tune?
Yeah, sure. Do you want to do a cover?
Yeah, do whatever, man. I totally do you.
Yeah, I got this one already. You might recognize the song.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much, Naryan.
Thank you.
Tune in tomorrow, folks. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Really.